Well, g'day everybody. Well, it's oil change time for the old VR Series 2. It's a 1995, it's obviously a V6. This one's pretty clean, it's not actually too bad, as you can see. It's got a few oil leaks and things like, I'd say the pressure switch for the light on the dash is stuffed, because you can see it's sort of leaking oil where the plastic meets the metal on the body of it. So usually it's a part that most auto places stock, so I suggest if yours is sort of weeping like that, throw it away, because it usually means the actual sensor's no good. I don't really see many other oil leaks that this has got. The rocker cover gaskets probably need doing, but they're not bad. You know, the rear crank seal leaks a bit and the front one leaks a bit, but the car is over 20 years old. Actually, it's just on 20 years old, sorry, now that I correct myself. So, you know, things wear out, nothing lasts forever. You know, for it to get to 259,000 Ks and 20 years old without really anything being done to the motor itself, apart from some rewiring with the alternator, as you can see. I've featured this in videos, by the way. It's the original alternator output cable, which is well baked, and there's a new one down there that you can't see. I think the end of it is no, not that one, it's this one here. Yeah, anyway, I digress. It's well overdue for an oil change. I don't know how much over, I haven't really been keeping track. Doing this one-handed is kind of a nuisance, especially because I'm right-handed. The mileage that it should have had an oil change on, I probably won't be able to read it, but go to the cluster, it says 259,271. I can't make out what this says, but it's well overdue. I can't read what it says. 237,000 something. It should have been done 237. So 240,000 roughly. So it's probably, you know, probably about double the interval. You know, but you know, it doesn't get driven that often. Obviously it has been driven that often at the moment. One of the things that I'd like to point out is we are using one of these cartridges on this car. This is equivalent to a Z154. There is the GM part number, you know, and there's the AC Delco part number too. This is the OEM cartridge for this car, okay? The filter that's on it, this guy down here, might have to get the tool to undo it. In fact, it's a two-handed job really, but if you didn't wring the shit out of the oil filter, and providing your hands are actually clean and not covered in oil, you can often just spin the filter off just with, you really need two hands, but just with your hands you can usually undo it. You're only supposed to use your hands to do it up in the first place, so you can see you can actually do it if you haven't tightened it too much. A lot of people tighten the absolute hell out of oil filters. They have a lot of trouble getting them undone. I never really have to use the tool that often, but yeah. So we've already drained out the oil. That's happening underneath. There wasn't a lot of oil in there. Now, a lot of people ask, when should you service your engine? When should you do oil changes? Well, here are the basic service intervals for these cars and many others. The oil change interval for these things is 10,000 Ks. That's, you know, under normal operating conditions. Under extreme circumstances you should be doing it at 7. But I'm going to add a little note to that, because I get asked a lot of the time when you should be doing the oil changes and stuff, and well, you have to modify the oil change or service intervals for any car based on how old the car is, how many miles it's done, because, you know, a really high mileage engine's going to burn oil, so you know, they're also going to leak oil. So you need to be aware of the fact that by the time 10,000 Ks rolls around, they're probably won't be any oil left. This was a bit low. I'll show you in a minute once I clean the plug up and put it back in. Which is an important point to remember. Clean the face of the sump where the sump plug washer, seats on it. Don't over tighten it, because you'll never get the washer off. It'll be a pain in the arse, and you don't want to crush the crap out of the washer anyway. A copper one you can reuse. Maybe you can use twice. Maybe aluminium, if you're very careful, you can use twice. Don't use fibre or plastic sump plug washers. If that's all they sell, then go somewhere else. Because yeah, really buy a few sump plug washers at once and throw them in the glove box, because copper's the ideal thing. Any good auto parts store should sell copper sump plug washers. But yeah, just be aware of the fact that if your engine leaks oil even a little bit, or if it burns any oil, this doesn't burn any, but it does weep oil, unless you're prepared to pull the engine right apart, replace every gasket and seal in it, it's going to leak oil, and you're going to have to modify the service interval based on the usage of the oil. So check it every week, at least. Every, Monday or Friday or something. When you get home from work, or Saturday, okay? When you're not doing anything, just open the bonnet, have a look. With it cold, okay? Don't check anything hot, because you might burn yourself. But take the cap off when there's no pressure and it's cold, okay? Stone cold. No warmth at all in it, because otherwise, you might take the cap off and it might boil and scald you, because the pressure's the only thing keeping it from boiling. But just make sure there's enough, water, or this is water, it should be coolant. Make sure it's full. Can't really see where that's up to, but it's up to there. So the bottle's a bit sad because it's only plastic, but yeah, make sure the recovery bottle's got enough coolant in it. Use only the specified coolant as they printed on the top there, which you can't read because of the sun. Don't use cheap coolant, use only the recommended stuff, okay? Make sure there's coolant in the radiator. So it should be basically up to the top, because it's a coolant recovery system, there shouldn't be air in the system. Make sure the hose that goes between here, runs there to the bottle, is in good nick. If it's not, replace it. Make sure the dip tube is in good nick. If it's not, go get one from the wreckers. Make sure the bottle doesn't leak. This keeps the cooling system topped up. And again, only buy good quality oil filters. Aftermarket cartridges are fine. This is obviously the best for this particular car. For a Ford Motorcraft is the OEM cartridge. Don't ask me who the OEM manufacturers for most Asian cars are. I don't think Nippon Denso make them. Maybe they do, I don't remember. Anyway, just avoid real cheap and nasty cartridges. The branded cartridge here is a Sakura, right? I've detailed this in a video before. It's all the auto part place had. There's the logo on it. It's made in Indonesia. There you go, Sakura, right? Recognise the logo and avoid at all costs. Because the other cartridges that I've used on the Ford and my car actually look down inside and they're starting to fall apart. So yeah, engines don't like bits of oil filter in their lubricating systems. So unless you want to ruin your engine, buy a good quality cartridge. At least a Valvoline, Ryco at least. Ryco are cheap and nasty cartridges, but mechanics do use them on occasion. So, but Sakura, you'll never see a mechanic that's any good or got any brains use a Sakura filter or any other really cheap cartridge. I mean, this was a $10 cartridge. Like, it's only $4 more than the cheapest one anyway. So you're not actually saving anything, because if the filter comes apart, doesn't do its job, whatever the case may be, you're going to end up with a ruined engine. Okay, don't forget to lubricate the gasket. I like to leave a bit of oil there, and don't need shitloads of oil, just a film of oil, as you can see, just to help, because you want to squash the seal up, and it's not going to happen if the gasket's providing friction against the housing. You don't want it to be false tight, okay? It's like lubricating head bolts. It'll lubricate your oil filter gasket. Don't put loads of oil on it. You don't want it everywhere. It's only supposed to lubricate the seal, okay? Now, as you can see, or you may not be able to, you probably can't. I filled the oil filter up with oil. There you go, there's a shine. And what I sort of do is just sort of do this with it a bit, to try and get the oil on the other side of the paper, on the housing side of the paper. That way, you know, you've actually got it full. Just make sure it is actually got plenty of oil. It's not full up to the top, but it's good enough. Well, I've put in all the oil because I know the sump capacity is the same as the bottle capacity. 4 litres, it's not going to matter if it's a tiny bit over full, you know, as long as it's not really over full. You have to wipe the dipstick and all that, but you can sort of see that, yeah, it's up to full. Filter's pre-filled, so I'm not expecting it to drop much. Just make sure you haven't left anything off. Like, give everything a wipe. This sort of cap. Just give it a clean. Make sure the O-ring's nice and clean and shit like that. Because, yeah, everything seals better when it's got a clean mating surfaces. When it's covered in shit, dirt and crap, you also want to avoid scratching the shit out of the rocker cover like some other idiot's done. Use a plastic funnel. It's a plastic rocker cover. Coke bottles work well if they're dry. I'll have to give it a hose down because I didn't use a funnel, so it's gone everywhere. Well, it's not too bad. I mean, you can see the manifold's actually dry. It's only really gone all over the inlet side, which is no big deal, but I will give it a bit of a hose. So just make sure it's clean. Everything seals better when it is clean. So just make sure your sump plug's tight. Don't tighten the crap out of it, please. Just, you want it to seal, but you don't want to ruin it. So tighten sump plug, filter. Make sure you put your oil cap back on, and above all, when you're servicing one of these things or any other car, this is a very tempting surface to put things on, like the oil cap or, for example, this thing. But this is a bad idea because a lot of the time, and this one's not too bad, it is sort of, you know, sticking up a little bit, but it's not as bad as some. But you'll find if you slam the bonnet, forgetting that that's there, it will put a dent in the bonnet and it will ruin the dipstick or the part you've got there. So don't put things on the engine or the rocker cover or whatever. The Ford, you get away with it because it's pretty low down. You got sort of, you know, the engine's down a fair way. These things, not so much. You can see that, can't get the camera low enough to show you, but you can see that there's a fair bit of engine in this engine bay. It's fairly high too, so it's a bad idea to put shit on there. Make sure you're not left any tools under the bonnet because they'll end up on the road or they'll damage something, or both. The only thing left is to fire this up. I don't normally bother doing this because, well, the oil change video is concluded, but you know, some people want to see it get fired up. We got oil pressure straight away. The light went out basically instantly, and as you can hear, it was nice and quiet. These engines tend to get rattly when the oil's low. Balancer shaft bearings and lifters and stuff, so yeah. You know, just check it. Every Saturday morning or whatever, check everything and make sure there's enough of everything in there. Like brake fluid. If the brake fluid's low, it probably means either your pads are worn out and need replacing, or it could also mean there's a leak somewhere. So, you know, car maintenance is a no-brainer. These pipes, they're a favourite for people tightening them a lot. They tend to get crushed if you do that, so just make sure it's not crushed in. You might even take this off and have a good look. If it is crushed, you can take the hose off and fill it up with silicone, you know, sealant, like Silastic or something, and put it back on. You know, just don't tighten things too much. That's the bottom line. Not a test of strength, not going to seal better for it being really tight.